So my name is James. I thought that for my Module 7 response, instead of writing another essay, I thought maybe I'd give it a shot to do a video very quick. So the first question that we have for this module response is who or what produced the media text? And maybe what I should mention first is that I chose the video for Thinker, T-H-N-K-R. And so the person who produced the media text would be Joel Rose, who was a 5th grade teacher in Houston before moving on to be a senior executive at Edison Schools. He has been involved in education for over 15 years and eventually moved on to be the CEO of School of One, which is based in New York. School of One was a blended school. It had a mix of live, collaborative, and online instruction that would provide a very individualized education to students, so in a way similar to Thinker. The other person in charge of this initiative, who did not appear in the video, would be Chris Rush, who has come from a financial and IT background. He was involved in the School of One initiative, and he led the conceptualization, design, and overall implementation of the event. So these two worked very closely together and had a vision for the type of education that they saw. They both dedicated a very large chunk of their professional lives to education, some in schools or others to the schools of the future as they are. They are entrepreneurs who seem to have found a deficiency in the education system and want to work towards fixing it, namely the idea that the schools right now are built to create a certain type of worker that was fit for a different time and a different age. And moving forward, we want to have more skills-based teaching that's becoming more prevalent in today's society to create the type of workers that we need to really be successful in today's life. The next question we have would be, how is the future classroom represented, and what are the main characteristics of that classroom? So the vision for Thinker would be to create a classroom in which there are certain stations, 10 or 11 or 12 stations in this classroom, each of which would have a different purpose. There would be some that would have individual work where the students are working on software, one where the students are working with teachers in the classroom that are physically there, one with students working with international tutors, so they would get a more specialized education that way, maybe more suited toward their language needs or the way that they conceptualize the world. Other stations would have students working collaboratively, doing different activities. One main thing is that the teacher wouldn't be the only authority figure in the world, in the classroom. It would be the tutors that are in the classroom. The students would take a very strong leadership approach. At the end of the day, the students would be writing an assessment in the classroom, and they would be analyzed by the computer software, and so it would guide their instruction for the next day. If they didn't achieve a high enough level on the assessment, they would be able to come in the next day and relearn some of that information, perhaps in different ways, in ways that they are lacking, and provide different strategies that way. But it becomes a very targeted, very individual approach to education then. The third question we have is, how is the future classroom different from current educational paradigms? And how is it similar to current educational paradigms? It's the same in that it focuses on differentiated instruction, and that's really been a big focus in a lot of schools right now. We see that there are many different ways for students to access information. It's becoming a more prevalent idea in today's classrooms. We are presenting information in audiovisual ways, oratory ways, kinesiology ways, different ways that students can explore the information, but also different ways that they can demonstrate their understanding in assessment. For example, even in the module responses that we're doing, we have the option to write an essay or an equivalence. So that means we could do a video, we could make a poster or write a letter, we could make a blog post, give a presentation or some other creative assessment, and we are allowed that freedom. So Thinker takes that idea and it also uses it in the classroom, where they can explore different stations and choose exactly what they want to do in the classroom based on their own interests, desires, how they're even feeling that day. It really is a good idea. It also directs that freedom to the methods of learning, which is also very important, where students are able to choose exactly how they want to learn. If they're feeling not as comfortable with their classmates as they would like, they have the option to work individually. Or if they're very interested in the topic, they have the ability to go and work with their fellow students and maybe take on a leadership role and help to teach some of that. One other thing it does very similarly is it also evaluates how the students are learning and taking in the information and then using that to inform future lessons. And that is something that happens very often in today's classrooms. It's something that is taught even in our own assessment classes as formative assessment, where we allow students to demonstrate their understanding, and then we find the cracks and find the missing pieces in their knowledge. And that informs the future to when we can plan the following lessons better and help them to make up those misunderstandings. What this does, however, is it also makes that analytic work very computerized, very automatic. It takes away the chance for human error or interpretation. It's laid out, the numbers do not lie to you, so it helps to have a very accurate and a very specific targeted plan for an individual, and it helps to find the nuances that students will be able to use to progress better and better that way. The final question is, what is your critical take on the video? My critical take on this whole idea of Thinker is that it's a great idea. I think that it allows for a lot of variation in the classroom, and I think it's definitely where we need to be looking towards. We need to be moving towards this skill-based learning inquiry. We need to be looking at creating students that understand that their role in life and in society is no longer just going to be geared towards memorizing and regurgitating information. It's also going to be they're also going to be valued for their ideas and their creativity. And so because of that, the individualization of the classroom where students are allowed to guide their own learning and explore their own curiosity is a wonderful idea. I do have some questions, of course. We want to make sure that students understand that they are going to be expected to work while they're in these areas. There seems to be a disconnect between the supervision in the classroom and the amount of students in the classroom, where only a few stations are going to be supervised by teachers. And as we all know, with junior high students, with high school students even, there's not always that desire to go and guide your own learning and to work hard without that authority figure in the room. That could be changed, of course, but even in some subjects where it's just not going to be that interesting, there are going to be some dry subjects, you want to make sure that students understand exactly what they're expected to do and how to achieve that goal. Beyond that, I also have some concerns for the feasibility, the financials of it, to have that much space taken up with students to implement all the technology within the room and to bring in outside tutors. It seems like it could be a very expensive plan to implement, and because of that, I don't know how feasible it would be to put into a classroom. But if it could be achieved, if the finances were there and students, if there was an answer to the supervision of the students, I think it would be a wonderful idea to implement, to bring forward to classrooms today, because it really does help guide students towards where they need to be in the future, which is as creative thinkers, critical thinkers, and very creative people in the creative class, than it does the current model where a lot of students are asking, when are we going to use this in the real life? And the honest answer is you're not, because we're still teaching a lot of the older ideas. We are still teaching a very traditional method in classrooms that is not going to help our students. So overall, I think it's a great idea, but unfortunately I am still concerned about the feasibility of it.